Do we have that here? Oh, that, okay.
Thank you for all of them.
Try to make it digestible, you know, it's a lot.
Did you violated something?
Good to go. You're live and you're hot.
All right.
So whatever you're saying is on the internet.
Okay. All right, thank you. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is the monthly meeting of the Historic Preservation Review Board. This is a citizen board appointed by the town council to interpret and uphold the Historic Preservation Ordinance. Anyone who has a presentation to make, when it's your turn, if you'll come to the podium and give us your name and address, that would be very helpful. Roll call.
All right, Mr. Boyd,
Here.
Mr. Owens,
Here.
Mrs. Hartshorn,
Here.
Mrs. White,
Here.
and Mr. Kiesler.
Here. Okay, the first order of business is the approval of the minutes for the November 3rd, 2021 regular meeting. Are there any changes or questions regarding those minutes?
I'll move that they be approved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Boyd,
Aye.
Mr. Owens,
Aye.
Mrs. Hartshorn,
Aye.
Mrs. White,
Aye.
and Mr. Kiesler.
Aye. And the next are the minutes from the November 17, 2021 work session. Are there any comments or changes to those minutes? Not, is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, roll call.
Mr. Boyd,
Aye.
Mr. Owens,
Aye.
Mrs. Hartshorn,
Aye.
Mrs. White,
Aye.
and Mr. Kiesler.
Aye. Then I believe we have a certificate of appropriateness next on the agenda, but we also have a PowerPoint presentation apparently that was going to come under new business or old business or some sort of business.
Oh, is he putting it on there?
Maybe maybe we should move on to the certificate of
Okay.
appropriateness. Do you want to go now or do you want to wait?
Sure. I was gonna get Mr. Bailey to put this up on the screen for us, but.
Well, we can do
He
we've got
flew
one
the coop.
certificate of appropriateness to do first if you want to
Sure.
wait.
Well.
Whatever
yeah.
you want to do.
Well,
Totally up to you.
Yeah, that's fine. Let's see if we can
Okay.
put this up.
Okay.
All right, great. All right, certificate of appropriateness, Ned Lloyd.
Look like me.
You don't look like Ned.
He can answer more questions than I can probably, but we've answered, I think, all the comments.
Very thorough.
There is one thing we want to change, and that is the handrail pickets that we've shown, the wrought iron pickets, have got a little detail in the picket, and we want to leave those off and just have, plain pickets. I got a drawing of it. Here's the one. They're up there in the cover.
Oh, yeah, you're taking those out, straighten them out. Okay.
Hey, that's the correct name for who did.
So,
No.
no.
It's just this.
So he's saying it's no. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Somebody might not know it.
Yeah, somebody might not know. For the record, my name is Jim Bundy. I'm representing the Lloyds on the property.
Okay, so I'm sure we've all had a chance to review what you've submitted, and the proposal is to add an additional story to the existing
Yes.
structure at 158 East Main Street.
Yes.
And is there anything further you want to say, or can we just go ahead and open it up for questions?
We're going to, on the side that faces Brewer's Alley, I guess that's what that is. It's painted stucco block right now, And we're going to continue that, except structurally at the top, we had the plywood on that. We're gonna stucco that too and paint it all the same color. And you've already got the color chip, I think.
Just on that one side, Jeff?
Yeah,
And the brick sample you're showing here goes where?
On May.
yeah.
So the front of the building that actually faces Main Street, it would be bricked as proposed. But the sides are actually currently painted block, but structurally, there's not really a way to continue that block, which is our initial intent. So what we'd like to do is do traditional framing on that block and then bring the stucco from top to bottom so that it's all the same. And get rid of get rid of the block and make it stucco on 3 sides. So the front would be brick, and instead of a block building, it would be a stucco building.
So on the existing, you would stucco over the block?
Yeah.
Part of the addition's above the front too, and it'll be brick, that brick.
Yeah, so the Main Street facing would be brick with the other 3 sides. The block would go away.
Like it is.
Stucco all away.
And will the brick on the Main Street first floor stay the same?
I think
Yeah.
That's currently how it's proposed.
And would the brick above match it, or what would you
It
do?
doesn't look the same, but maybe,
So we intentionally made it different,
Yeah.
to give it a little bit more of a architectural look, and maybe not be quite so plain on the front, but.
And you couldn't match it anyway.
Yeah,
I
if we
doubt
had to
we could
re-
match it.
yeah.
We could pull off what's there and redo it new, but when they presented sort of that, more of a unique design on top, we would've liked it, so I left it.
you're talking about this is what's gonna be up above.
Yeah, but the new part of that.
That's the new brick. And then this picture that's here is more of a plain, all one color brick.
Yeah,
Can I go?
Okay. Here's what we're showing, what you have here.
Which looks a lot
Is all,
like.
and then this other brick is what you're thinking of doing above, which is sort of more of a black and red brick?
So this is sort of the existing,
Oh.
the black and red, it's the existing brick color.
Okay, where's your new?
You can take
Write
it.
that on that.
I think what we're proposing is a cleaner brick color, a little less 60s brick
Okay.
color, maybe. That's the challenge with this building, is it's not a 1800s building,
Right.
it's a 60s building, and so it's a little bit hard to, and so what we propose is a cleaner, a little cleaner brick.
On the upper
color on
level.
the upper part of the
I guess
ceiling.
we don't have that picture of that new upper, maybe.
it's on there.
I mean, as far as the color,
Yeah, I mean,
Or
with
the-
this, cause
the
this,
brick pattern.
this is the existing,
yeah.
not the new. Okay. Oh, here's, okay, well, that doesn't look, this is what you have on it now, though.
Right down here.
Okay.
And then we're gonna put this trim on here made out of brick, but this will all be the new brick, which I think this is.
It says existing,
Okay.
and I don't have I don't have the new brick. Okay.
Yeah, I thought they had samples submitted.
And this is, what is this made out of?
It's, that's identified in our notes. right
I'm
there.
sorry,
It's,
I didn't know what it was
it's
called.
metal.
Okay, the awning,
Right there.
that thing, okay.
Standing seam.
Standings. Okay.
Is that lighter brick above the new brick, it's gonna be sort of a lighter color, or?
We don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't look like we spec the top brick, we can work on that. I would be looking for something that's more consistent in color, not this 60s, 70s black and white, or not black and white.
Black and red.
Is the existing brick on the Main Street facade on the first floor, is it over top of concrete block, brick veneer over concrete
I
block?
believe it is a brick veneer over
Yeah.
there.
So, I mean, there's a lot of details
Yeah,
that
it's a lot to.
we haven't asked questions about yet that we probably need to. I think overall, you know, this is a really challenging project, as I'm sure you recognize,
Yeah.
because you have, an existing structure that is a more modern structure that, just as you pointed out a second ago, is not a historic structure, so it already stands out in the historic district. And then,
Stands out bad. At least.
Well, I wasn't gonna
at least
say
it's my
that.
name on the title.
so it's a non-contributing really structure, so, but, and so proposing to do something, I think that's gonna improve that is a step in the right direction and would be beneficial. And, you know, obviously, and our standards call for, our guidelines on additions to historic structures all are geared around just that, an addition to an historic structure. And so the idea is for the addition not to overpower the historic structure, and for it to be consistent with, but not look like an original bit of architecture, so that you're not fooling the public that this was always there. And all these kind of rules that we have for additions to historic structures don't really come into play with what you're doing, because that's not really the goal. So then we're sort of looking at new construction in the historic district, and the guidelines there call for new construction to be compatible with the historic district and to sort of blend in and not be obtrusive. And so it looks like you all have put a lot of effort into trying to do that with this structure, and that's what this addition appears to do. And, you know, speaking, I guess, for the rest of the board, I think we can see that that's what you're trying to do.
That's the intent, that's the intent.
So, right, and, which we very much appreciate. I think some of the concerns that I have are that, the styling of the second floor is fairly elaborate and fairly, like the large cornice on the top and some of the, brick ornamentation that's been in here. I see that you're pulling that from other buildings, but that type of feature, on other buildings tends to be on very large 2-3-story massive buildings. And so it seems to me that it's a little, heavy on the size of this structure.
So it's super interesting that you bring that up, because I don't know if you know the history of that building, but it used to be a flat roof building. And the detail work on the building currently is from the cornice of the flat work. So the effort there was to try to restore some of the look that was there in the 80s when it was flat. But that was an effort to be more conformed to what the building was and is. I could actually care less as far as that look. It was just like, okay, it was here, let's maintain it, let's just move it to the top. But if that's not a concern, that's not a concern.
So that actually cornice was there before?
So if you look at the building now, the actual, there's the fascia eave, and then there's a detail on the brick. That was the cornice that was around the flat roof. And the flat roof is actually still there underneath the, so that was the 1962 cornice that was on the building.
Now, are you talking about the white part on your proposal or the brick part underneath the white part? We're talking about
Way down.
this
Okay,
brick.
so currently, there's a cornice that is a different proportion but the same design, right along all four sides of the building, right here at the current level. So we took that design, moved it up, and made it more proportional to the new building size, to try to keep that look if that was important.
Is this part of what you're talking about?
Yes.
Did they completely cover that with the block when it was put up?
What's that?
You said there's a cornice all the way around, but visible now.
I guess I'm sorry, on the below bearing sides, the eave side, not on the, I don't know where it was on all four sides.
That's what I'm
The
saying.
vinyl siding that was put there when this roof structure was put in,
Right.
evidently the cornice disappeared, but it's still at the eave. It's not as big as obviously what we're proposing.
Okay.
Do you see that?
So was that the white cornice, is that what you've decided?
Oh, is it on?
Yeah, it's in the packet.
It's in the packet, yeah. Was that the white cornice that you're talking about?
Yeah, so that
Oh.
was simply an effort to maintain some of the detail that seemed to be on the building
But
originally.
under it, I think.
Under there.
Yeah.
Again, recognizing that's not a historical feature.
Right.
Well, just to sort of follow what Byron was saying about maybe the size, the scale, or the elaborateness, I think that's part of the issue with me is you're maintaining the first floor pretty much unchanged. And then it progressively gets sort of more top-heavy with detail going up. I would simplify that cornice and not have the dental moldings, which really adds to the sort of fussiness of it in this situation.
Saves me money, it's not.
I mean, I think a simpler and maybe not even as high a cornice, you're using a prefab product, there are all kinds of, in fact, I think you put something in here, but, I mean, there are all sorts of profiles available. And to me, that would be one of the things that would really kind of bring it all into balance a little bit better, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's really fair, actually.
The cheaper too.
Cheaper too.
Yeah.
This is a challenge. I'm sure it was a challenge for you to take this little non-contributing building and try to improve it to add something to
Is
it.
it important to try to preserve something of what was here or to try to fit into the town? I would prefer to try to fit into the town because I don't care a lot about what that looks like.
Well, I don't think what was there originally or when it was remodeled, neither of those really have any aesthetic value, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's an issue.
Right, I think
Yeah.
I think the whole idea, the whole trick, or the challenge will be to make the end product blend into the historic
Yeah.
district and not stand out.
Yeah. Which is a little bit unique because I don't know the name, but the butcher shop next door.
Yes.
Is sort of a unique building, but then you have the trig.
Right.
And it's like, how do you keep a proportional theme as it goes down the hill? But also, yeah, I mean, I'm with you. It has been a challenge. It's been fun, but it's been a challenge.
Everybody might be interested to know this, you probably won't, maybe Jim remembers it. When I came to work for Bob Ferguson, and Jim worked there for a few years too, 50 years ago, literally. That project where the bush shop is now was being renovated. I didn't have anything to do with it except just observe it, because, as I say, it was in construction when I came to work there. And the office was on the second floor of the Greenway Trig building, so we had a perfect view of the construction going on. But what Bob Ferguson, the architect, was trying to do, and I won't drag this out too much, but he didn't have much use for this start. The Board of Architectural Review, as it was called at that time,
Yeah.
and sort of locked horns with Maxine Hilton. And so he was trying to make something that addressed some of the features in the architecture of the district, but didn't mimic it. And that's why those brackets are scaled so
Pronouns, yeah.
big. And they're probably about the size of the ones on the courthouse portico, but of course they're on a much bigger building. So, you could debate whether that was the right way to go from a design standpoint, but that was what was going on. And it had a sloping roof. And so he leveled it out with that cornice that sort of wrapped around the whole thing.
So, yeah, if you start at building the white birch, what I don't know what that building is called, but where white birch is, it's a real clean historic brick. I really like it. And then you move into a little bit of a modern butcher shop kind of thing, and then you go to the very historic trig. It's like, how do you keep
Right.
all that stuff? How do you tie sort of all three of those features together? You have three buildings together and the fourth building together.
Is the second floor going to be, the new floor going to be residential?
Residential.
Plus, with keeping the ground floor basically like it is, then that's another variable that you're gonna have to work with the addition, which, to again echo what Peyton said, that's why I think maybe plainer and smaller scaled would be better because you already have such a, you know, a very plain first floor. So to make that work together better, I mean, it
When you
might.
say first floor, you're talking about the main floor?
Right, the existing.
The existing floor.
With the door and the two windows.
Yeah. Well,
So you might even, I mean, I see these, square kind of, I guess they're made out of brick, the features above and below the column, those accents.
Yeah.
You might want to not have those to make it again.
You're gonna laugh when I show you the first one. That's exactly, we thought maybe it needed more detail, so we did it, but we've actually already drawn it with less.
For me, I think that would be better to make it plainer, because it's going to, you've already got to make it work with the first floor, and planer's gonna be, make it less obtrusive in the story.
Sure, okay, yeah.
I admire the challenge
I
that
know.
you're
It's
taking this on.
And I wish my wife could be here, she wanted to be, but she had an appointment in Charlottesville, but it's just, between her and Nestor and Matt and Jim, this has been kind of a fun, lot of back and forth.
So let's go back to the back side, with the stairs and balconies. So all of that framing is metal,
Yep.
steel.
Yes.
Not to be sort of picky about it, but it's not wrought iron, because we don't really have wrought iron anymore commercially. So it's painted steel.
Yeah, paints.
And,
Could be aluminum, but it's right now painted steel.
well,
Anodized black or, you know, painted black, either way, black painted.
well, again, that's less costly than aluminum, so.
What?
Less costly than aluminum would be. There's nothing wrong with
Yeah.
steel.
Yeah, do you wanna go with like a treated wood on a structure of that size, cause it seems like in 10 years,
No.
you're back right here.
I'm not questioning the metal.
I like that, yeah.
But are the two posts on the front that is in front of that recessed balcony, are they also the same pre-finished metal material?
You're talking about on the second story of the front?
Yeah, they're the two.
Yeah.
No, I'm on the front.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
It's a single, I think there's a detail of it in that, or no, but it's a square column with a single recess in it.
But also metal, steel.
I think that's wood, I'm not sure, pretty sure that's what it is.
I think there's a
Oh, here's the,
spec in here for that.
yeah, it doesn't say what material is the,
I would like to fabricate those out of steel with a little bit more detail as shown than what we would do on the back. Same material, less detail.
Same
Same
width,
material, more detail.
same size though, width or you
Yeah,
want bigger,
proportionate.
smaller?
Yeah, proportionate to that, but the
Well, the one
back
that's-
have the insets.
The one that's circled here, the recessed non-tapered square,
That's it.
that's what looks like what's drawn on the elevation.
That's just probably a better idea. Yeah, it's probably better to do a fiberglass or something like that than try to do a steel with a detail on the front. I don't think we'd be able to tell once it was painted. It wouldn't be critical. Probably would. So maybe we should say that detail. on the front,
Yeah, I mean, you got-
Plainer steel on the back.
this was already circled, so this must be in your
Yeah, but
specs.
he was just ahead of me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And what about the windows on the balcony? Can you tell me about those?
Up in the top?
Yeah.
So that is, what we speculated was, okay, so this is interesting. So the windows in the building are actually fairly new, but in the front, I think there's an opportunity to maybe get the color of the trim right and use a wood, an actual paintable wood window. So I'm proposing, I would like to make the patio, the patio that we'll talk about, I'll answer your question, and the front door that's downstairs and the two windows on the front, all the same manufacturer, same series, so that we can finish them all the same. But I think we're talking about up there, you've seen these sliding glass doors that will open in multiple
Mhm.
sections.
Yes.
something similar to that. Pella makes a product in their architectural series that's wood on the outside that's paintable. And so that's what we spec on there. But something that could open up, it's not a huge space upstairs, so something that could open up fairly broad, to enjoy, whatever's going on the street.
And so, would you be replacing the door to match the windows? Is that what I thought you said, or was it from the same series of?
Yeah, to me, it doesn't have to, but to me, it made sense to make sure that anything that got installed on the front of that building had continuity to it, which might help the overall look. But yes, that would be the intent.
So is this door with the 6 lights above and the panel below shown here, that's not the door that will be there, or?
So that door, even though it would be in maybe the same series and replaced, it would be matched to what's there. So Pella makes a product that looks exactly the same.
Oh, so you're saying the door would appear the same, but you could match the color to the trim of the windows?
Right, so if you have aluminum clad windows or vinyl clad windows, while they're very nice and they're very maintenance free, you are kind of stuck with white or brown or black.
Not necessarily, depends on the series, I guess.
It could be, so I thought ideally it would be nice to have the option to set the color that was the same as, I don't know if we spec that, but as some other feature, some tie together feature, but it doesn't have to be. I mean, it could go with a pure white or black or brown. Front door wooden paint. Anyway, I think I just spec'd it to give us the option to have a paint color on those features, even if it turned out to be white.
That's what this armor is, the gray?
Armor is the color for the posts, the rails, and the steel on the back. And the steel on the, little roof piece over the front door to try to add a little bit of detail on the plane in front.
So, again, referring to our guidelines with regard to this addition and structure is tricky.
Yes.
So our guidelines say with regard to new windows should have raised muttons visible on the outside of the glass surface. True divided light muttons are preferred, but only if the cross-section profile is appropriate to the architectural style of the building in both the size and shape. Properly sized simulated divided lights with muttons permanently attached to the exterior face of the window are acceptable. So, of course, this is none of the above, but it sort of falls into the appropriate to the architectural style of the building. So, again, we're.
Well, the existing windows that are here are
Right.
double hung, single light.
Yeah, and
That's
it's a
the precedent.
scale
Right.
problem. So when you start adding the
Yeah.
single divided lights, it gets really tight and busy.
Right.
I don't,
Bigger,
Right.
it would work.
I don't think you want that.
Yeah, I was just pointing out that we're,
There's even some to where you can just do like a single divided. It's just like a single, and those have an interesting look. You can draw it up to see how it would tie in upstairs, but.
So it sort of looks like the direction you're going in is, trying to make it blend in with the historic district, and what we're saying is to do that, simpler is better.
Okay.
And smaller proportions are better, and less fuss is better.
That's good.
How deep is that balcony?
4 feet. Good, nominally, give or take. I don't know how it finishes up.
And what you said, Byram, earlier about this, it's hard to apply all these guidelines to this particular building, because they're meant for, an old historic building that usually has bigger windows, et cetera, like
Yeah.
this. So it is difficult what you've been trying to do.
Yeah.
Did you decide on the white for the cornice, thinking that would be a point in its favor because it ties in with other cornices, or would you prefer a different color?
That's a great
Just to
question.
tie into the rest of the building.
Because,
Yeah.
which I guess color-wise it does, but it also makes that stand out more.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't argue if you proposed something other than white.
Okay.
I don't know what anybody else would think about that. Definitely against that darkish color of
Yeah.
brick and paint on the side is gonna really stand out.
Yeah, and you doing that, adding colors in the right spots can really change the modern flair versus the traditional flair, and so I think that's what you'd be looking at when you look at those colors, does this take it too modern, or does it keep it traditional?
Well, the buildings that you cited, going up the street, like the whatever it's called, juice place,
The butcher shop.
and, they don't, all those don't have white on them.
Yeah,
Some have sort of Victorian-looking colors.
yeah.
So,
I wouldn't push that, but I'm just saying it's something that I think I, for one, would consider as an option.
The butcher shop's trim is what?
I think it's white on the rim
I
windows,
think it's white now, isn't it?
but not the whole
Yeah.
top. That's all
I
that's
see what
sort
you're
of.
saying as far as making it more diminutive.
Yeah.
Keeping a level of detail but more diminutive.
The point trying to make it not stand out,
Yeah.
which would be detracting from the historic buildings around it, trying to make it, be more subtle.
Yeah. So we'll simplify some of the detail on the front,
Is that what the building you're talking about?
change the scale.
'Cause that's not
of
white.
some of the trim on the top.
Mhm.
But the
Um,
butcher shop,
it,
well, they changed all
and
that.
play with
Yeah.
the color
That's-
of it
that
a
has-
little bit.
That's not,
Storefront windows now.
yeah, but
Yeah.
it's this darker.
Maybe you could
Yeah,
give
that's
us,
still,
if you have several options, that would be great, or just whatever, but I think that those would, I think that's what we're saying. So should we table this for tonight and you come back with, an amended proposal that takes that makes those changes?
Do you have a
Whatever your
timeline?
process is.
Do you have a timeline that you're under?
No, not specific.
We don't mind having a called meeting.
Well, no, I don't, this is the first time I've ever done this in my life. So you would have to tell me how, I'm happy to do whatever.
Well, we very much want it to work for you.
Yes.
you do have this pretty strong, deep color used quite a bit already.
Especially in the back, yeah,
Well, yeah, but
yeah.
that's all gonna be visible, even though it's on the back side.
Yeah.
So,
Do you feel we've given you enough guidance on,
Absolutely, again, I don't do this for a living.
okay, well then, if that works, we'll table it, and then as soon as you get your revised plans and want us, we'll obviously have our monthly meetings, but if you need us to get together
In between.
outside of that, we'll be glad to do
Do we-
that.
Yeah, I would say
Have
the
a work
next step
session
for us is
in
if
December.
we have a mutual plan that this can work, then we need to start cost feasibility. Right, we've done some of that, but then we can kind of go hard on that.
Mhm.
And then if we run into a barrier there, that gives us an opportunity to talk about it, and if we don't, then we have an opportunity to say, let's do this. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Okay,
So yeah, we can get that to you.
Okay.
okay, great. All right.
But I'm all for you going ahead to look at your costs and stuff.
Oh,
You need to get that.
Well, with the
Figure it
feedback
out.
that you've given me tonight, and, cause I didn't know, dude, just like, no way. And I'm glad it's not. Yes, we can definitely start driving toward that and get some of these details, simplified, and actually help us, so the simplified details to you to say, yes, we're on the right track. And then I understand, I would think we would wanna have a conversation on the, brick color at the top,
And the grout.
yeah, sure,
Yeah.
that type,
Yeah.
we can nail down those details, but those kind of details aren't cost really driven, it's more just to make
Right.
sure everybody's happy with it.
We would just use standard cement, I'm sure.
I guess maybe what we're sort of trying to say is, it doesn't have to look like a grand historic building.
Okay.
You can scale it back and we'll be okay
So
with
I
that.
can get rid of the sixties, seventies look, but it doesn't have to look like,
Charleston.
okay, got it.
If you wanna take that brick veneer off and replace it, that probably wouldn't be a problem either.
We've actually talked about that, the challenges down in the planters and how that puts together in
Oh,
the
okay.
steps, but that's not a deal breaker, that's, So, I don't think anybody's getting a lot of argument from me if that's the right way to do that. But we didn't know, again, if that was asking too much to remove what was there.
I would.
I think you're going in the right direction, if you don't think.
Okay, so we can look at all that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys for the time.
Do we need an official motion
Do we have to take a motion on that?
to table it?
To table it?
Yes, well, I guess we do. Is there a motion to table it till we get further plans?
So move.
Second,
I'll second.
roll call.
Mr. Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Owens?
Aye.
Mrs. Hartshorn?
Aye.
Mrs. White?
Aye.
And Mr. Geeson?
Aye. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And then before we talk about long-range planning or preservation plan discussion, I believe Mr. Bell has a presentation on FOIA for us.
You,
All right, thank you.
and hopefully it won't take you too long. It's more useful out here when it's on. It helps with TV. Okay, so. We've had some questions with some other boards, and so just to make everything uniform, I've gone to several and will cover all the rest of the boards and committees of the town to go through Freedom of Information Act training. All of you are more well-seasoned, so I won't belabor any of this, and obviously a lot more formal than some of the other bodies of the town. But just wanted to run through the sort of standard things. So. What's covered by Freedom of Information, basically access to documents and access by the public to meetings. A public body means any legislative body, blah, blah. Essentially, this body as a board of the public body is a public body and thus subject to all the same rules. The basic purpose of FOIA, of course, is to have open government. It ensures citizens' ready access to public records and also free entry to meetings of public bodies where the business of the people is being conducted. So we'll first start with public records. All public records are open to inspection unless specifically exempted by law. There are several exceptions, and it doesn't matter why a person is asking or not, as long as it is a public record and they are an appropriate person to ask for those records. There's a very broad definition of public records, and of course in modern times the way this has gotten complicated is through electronic communications and the like. And so at the bottom there you see text messages, voicemail recordings, Facebook posts, instant messenger, Twitch, whatever, all the things that Byram is on, then all those things apply. So what you want to be cognizant of, this body has several members, so of course when we talk about meetings, it would take 3 members of you to form what would be a meeting. We'll talk about that in a second, but any communication about public business between members of this body is a public record. So even if it's not a meeting, and even if it's something that you're talking about kind of not on the agenda or all those sorts of things, if you send a text message about it or a voicemail recording or anything like that, then it is a public record and it's up to you to maintain it because if the town is asked through its FOIA office to present those things, then those are things that could be produced through the office, and if we don't keep those records, then that would be a violation. So the simplest thing is don't do it, is to communicate in meetings, in public, or by phone, and that way you don't have to worry about whether there are records that are kept or not. These are the basic requirements for record disclosure, not something that you need to worry about. That's handled by the FOIA officer, but these are a list of things to keep in mind, again, of what would be records and what it takes to produce them. You may from time to time get, Mr. Bailey, of course, is the FOIA officer, and Ms. Kingsley helps him in responding to most requests. So from time to time, you may get an email from them saying, hey, do you have any records related to this type of thing? And that's the reason why, is that you might be in possession of public records. People who are town employees or council members who have town email addresses, all those things go across town servers, so that's a lot easier to handle. But each of you are communicating through your own business, your own personal emails, and that sort of thing. So that's up to you to maintain. The common exceptions from FOIA are legal documents, working papers, closed meeting records, personal records, criminal, etc. So that's sort of the first half. The second half is meeting. Any meeting is 3 or more members, or 2 if that's quorum. So what that means generally, and is to give notice of meetings when there are what we're calling meetings. So there are rules associated with that to make sure that if you are having, for instance, you mentioned a specially called meeting, that we post those in the right places and give proper notice. There are exceptions, of course, for emergencies and that sort of thing, and there were a lot of exceptions during the emergency of the pandemic, and all those have since gone away. So it does require a meeting of a quorum of the body in person. There are some limited exceptions. Council has adopted a policy. I don't think that any of the individual boards have, but there technically is a statutory procedure where you can pass a policy that would allow members to participate remotely if necessary, but there are only limited exceptions for that. You have to be sick or unavoidably detained out of the area, and you can only do that once or twice a year. So that's not really something that seemed for a while like maybe everybody was going to switch towards all Zoom, everything, all the time, and that's all gone away. So I don't think that we're likely to go back to that anytime soon. But the flip of that is if you're 3 of you happen to be at Food City at the same time and you say, hey, what kind of cake is Betsy baking today, then that's not a meeting and nothing required about it. But you meet in the bakery aisle of Food City and say, hey, what do you think about that facade on that building? Then that could be technically a meeting, and it would be a violation to discuss those things of 3 of you at one time. Right. At one time without giving proper notice of a meeting.
Okay.
So that's something to keep in mind. 2 people can discuss even public business without it being a meeting. But again, the flip of that is if there are documents about that, then those are still records that have to be kept. It wouldn't be a meeting for the open meeting side of FOIA, but they could be public records for the public record side of FOIA. But yes, if 2 of you met anywhere and talked about public business or talked on the phone or whatever, that's not a meeting and doesn't require notice. And of course, the reasoning behind that is 2 of you aren't a quorum, and so you couldn't enact any public business anyway. So that's the exception.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
How does this relate to the term ex parte conversations? Does it not at all?
Probably not to you. Board of Zoning Appeals is more of a judicial-ish body, and so that kind of has parties and that sort of thing. People who appear before HPRB aren't really considered parties. But in a court setting, for instance, you can't go to the judge and say, hey, we're going to talk about this or that. But if somebody wanted to come to just you and say, hey, I really like this color, will you advocate for me on
Mhm.
HPRB about
Yeah,
this
that's
color.
what I was talking about.
I think from a HPRB standpoint,
Mhm.
that's probably okay. I don't know if I would do that
Yeah.
as a practical matter, but from a FOIA standpoint or a meeting law standpoint, I don't think it's a problem. If you were on BZA, that would be an absolute violation of the statute. People can't approach members of BZA because they are a quasi judicial body.
When I went to the conference in Norfolk on this, there was a workshop that called us a quasi judicial. And that's what they were talking about, is this ex parte conversations, not to have.
Interesting. I don't think that technically applies in HPRB way, but in any event, I wouldn't do it.
Wouldn't do it, right. Stay away from it.
So,
Okay.
yeah, but, I don't think there, like I said, there is a specific statute about that for BZA, but for,
Okay.
Architectural Review Board, I think still by statute. I don't think that applies technically, but yeah. These are things that we've covered mostly and not up to you technically, but they're all meetings, of course, are open to the public, open to reporters and photographers and media, and anybody can, this comes up from time to time about whether somebody can videotape or take pictures or that sort of thing, and that's always allowed. We talked about this before. You have to vote in public, and sometimes this comes up. I don't think that you typically go into closed session, but that's technically allowed for specific things, and we'll get into that in a minute. I've seen some public bodies before that go into closed session and they'll talk about a topic, and then they'll come out and somebody will make a motion and say, yeah, we vote in favor of the thing that we talked about in closed session. Yes, all in favor, aye. Can't do that. You have to come out and into open meeting and vote on what you're actually discussing, so it's available to the public. But during the meeting, you have to keep minutes. That doesn't mean that you have to record, videotape, or take minutes of every second of the meeting. It just means that there are minutes that are taken that you guys are used to doing. And again, on the flip side of that, you don't have to take audio or video recordings, but if you do take audio or video recordings, then they do become public records and have to be produced for FOIA and also have to be kept subject to Library of Virginia rules. There are some examples of closed session meetings, for instance, being recorded, in some cases not knowingly recorded, and those end up being public records, even though you don't have to record or take any minutes in a closed session meeting, but if they do exist, then you have to keep them. So these are the common reasons for closed meetings. I don't think that's probably something that would come up in this board, but technically possible. Administrative requirements for the FOIA officer, that doesn't really apply to you. This is electronic participation that I just covered. There are some technical exceptions, and if it comes up that you can't reach a quorum for some reason and there's something that you need to talk to me about, then we can talk about it, but it probably won't apply to this board. You probably have to have a physical quorum to have a meeting. And that was a whirlwind tour of FOIA in Virginia.
That's great.
Any questions?
That was very good.
Yeah.
Would there ever be a situation, or could you come up with an example where this board would have to go into closed session?
Not really. You know, real property, if you're going to talk about, you know, it would affect the public body's ability to market something, is something that would probably be the closest, but I can't think of a reason why this body would go into closed session. Personnel matters, but I don't think it'd be anything that you guys would be involved in. I'm sure there's something that could come up, but it would be a very unique circumstance, I think. Okay?
So if there was a lawsuit, could they actually sue the board members for a decision, or would they be suing the town?
I would take the position that the town would be the party. A lot of times, lawyers sue whoever they can.
Well, every action we take is subject to just being appealed to town council,
Right.
so you'd have to do that before you do.
Right. Right, and so no individual person on this board could take an action, so I don't think that they would. So, yeah, And as Byram said, I think you'd have to exhaust your administrative remedies before you could do anything anyway. So none of these are all recommendations ultimately. So
if, for instance, we took a walk one day, three of us, to look at some structure, like when we went to Mamma Mia's, but we had, Janice was there and everything.
sure,
Who's responsible for recording that we did that?
Janice.
So we would have to inform her if we were gonna go do something.
Right,
Not
so
just-
the first thing would be and I guess Kim would technically be the person who would put out the notice of the meeting, but you would need to notice
So
that
if
that
your
was
meetings are at any location other than here, Janice would need to be.
and then it gets posted out here and
Okay.
on the internet and in the proper places that you're gonna do that. And minutes Janice is there to take the minutes of
Right.
what
And
occurs
the roll
then.
call. Okay,
but yeah.
so that's just run as a regular meeting when we're off-site
Sure.
doing something. Okay.
Sure.
Would it be possible for them to take a trip, like if we got on a bus, as long as we advertised it and allowed the public to participate?
Sure.
Okay.
That's, yeah, I was thinking like of that if we
Yeah, road
wanted to.
trip.
Could we have cocktails on that bus?
Right.
I didn't see anything saying that we couldn't.
I don't think that's covered by FOIA. Yeah, for instance, council goes on retreats, of course, and so we treat that just like a meeting, or if we're going to a VML meeting.
I guess
or
I'm
something like that.
thinking because when, we haven't gotten to it yet, but we had talked about, small groups going to talk to people about the proposed expansion of the historic district.
Right.
If we can do that in groups of 2, we can't do it in groups of 3.
Correct. You could do it in groups of 3, but
But
you
we
have to
would have
notice
to
it
bring
as a meeting.
Janice, so it'd be a group of 4. Okay.
There's, there's no legal issue that forbids us from going as pairs to
To
talk
do
to the
that, I
public
mean,
about
you know,
what
you
we
knew
may
that
be
was
doing.
coming up, like, that's one of
Right.
our
No.
plans, okay.
Okay.
How far in advance does a meeting have to be advertised?
Technically 3 days. If it's an emergency, then it can be shorter than that, but technically 3 business days for a specially called meeting. And I think as you typically do, we put out the calendar
Yeah.
for the whole year. And there's a common misconception that you have to have an agenda posted, and technically under FOIA, you don't have to have an agenda at all. Definitely preferred practice, but the only thing that FOIA requires is notice.
All right, great, thank you.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, preservation plan discussion.
Betsy, your list, this is really good.
This was great.
Yeah,
well,
thank
thank
you
you.
for this.
I figured we had so many things, it'd be
Yeah.
better just to pull them together into something succinct,
Yeah, it
maybe.
really did kind of make it a lot easier to have it
Good.
on.
Well, that was the point.
So Diana has given us some great things to accomplish here tonight, that we carried over from the work session. We talked about listing specific objectives underneath each of the goals that we have agreed on. We talked about selecting a kickoff meeting date. We talked about compiling a list of potential speakers for our expansion meeting, and then signing up for which of us will visit which people who we're proposing to try to expand their property into the historic district. So, do we wanna, does anyone have a preference on how we get into this?
If you wanted to start at the bottom, I could just pass this down the line, or, this is the sign-up sheet, I put it in the packet so you
Okay.
can see
Oh,
it,
yeah.
but if you wanna
We can
make
just
its
be
way
working on
towards
that.
Janice and decide who you wanna,
Okay,
as in the background.
okay, that's great.
Just go ahead and list here either one or two.
Yeah.
So you wanna talk about,
Before we
Sure.
do that, I guess, my question on this sign-up sheet, is this is where these people live? It's not the property they own.
Correct.
Okay, so when we are approaching them, I've gotta know,
What is the property that they own that's in question?
Yeah.
This is these are the addresses that came up when I selected
right,
them on
but
the
I know where a
GIS.
lot of these addresses are, and they're out in the county, so I'm just curious.
Okay,
These people don't actually live in the property that
So you would like to see,
Well, I just mean,
Yeah.
I don't know, like, say the first person on here that's a person, and they live in Bristol or somewhere, but they own this piece of property in Abingdon, but we have to, well, I own a rental property that I don't live in. So I don't live in the town of Abingdon, so my address would be where I live. People know that would be it's already in the historic district. I don't know, I don't,
so so if I went back and redid this list, perhaps, before you continue signing, you'd like to see, the next thing next to it would probably be the property address
I
as
think so.
well.
Well, what I was envisioning
Yeah.
was that when you look at this list of people to be approached, if you have a connection to the person, then that would be someone you should sign up for to go speak to, because they're gonna be approachable, like. So I was going to sign up for people that I know, and the people I know know what property they own too. So if you don't know the person or know the property, maybe no one sign up for them, and
Yeah.
then we'll figure out, we'll need to take a second pass at this and figure out who would be the appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, I
people.
guess I know one of these people, but I don't know what property she owns.
I can definitely, I can go back and, yeah, if you go through this
Okay,
and pick the people you'd like to speak with, then I can get the addresses of the property they own.
yeah,
Does
that
make
would be,
sense?
that would be helpful, yeah.
Okay,
I guess
okay.
it's easy to do, I don't know.
It is,
Okay.
I think I just picked, like, we highlighted the parcels,
Yeah,
and these are the names that are associated as the owners.
And we'll have more than one of us. You can put your name down.
so who has
if-
to talk to Betsy White? Who signed up for her? Did you sign up for yourself?
I didn't.
And William King.
Yes, that's gonna be a hard one.
And I know that this one is wrong.
Oh.
I know there's
In
one
fact,
here
I'm gonna
that's
bring it
wrong.
up at tomorrow's board
Which
board
one?
meeting.
This,
In fact, somebody
she
will probably
owned,
bring it up to
this
me.
is the place that's next to Rain. It used to be a hair salon, now it's gonna be like a bourbon bar. She no longer owns, she sold that building.
Urban Bar.
Bourbon and burgers, I heard.
Yeah, but she doesn't know, she no longer owns that, so.
And this, I mean, it's
I can
possible
cross
that
her,
it's
yeah,
not
I don't
up
know
to
who owns
date.
it though, okay.
Barb knows the current owner, I can't think of his name.
The new owner for the Abingdon General Store building?
Oh,
Yeah.
Tommy.
But that's this property that's under, Hope Thacker. She
He
sold
owns
that
the
to
building
him.
Caddy Quarter and across the street from there too,
He does?
where the Mexican restaurant is. He owns that.
Oh.
Same person has both of those, you say?
Oh,
Okay,
really?
so I think we need to just change that, or just cross her off, cause she doesn't own that property.
Which one is that?
Hope Thacker, she doesn't, she
Oh,
sold,
okay.
yeah.
When I was researching this stuff, there's
This stuff?
I don't remember if it's on federal or
Okay.
state,
Uh-huh.
but there is it's like I can't remember what they called it, an easement or something, and it's kind of involved as far as, like William King may benefit from, you may be familiar with this, with
And then
an,
What, I don't know what you're talking
this
about.
house is in my neighborhood.
well, it's not in this subject, but we were
Okay.
talking
I
about
live in
William
Winterham,
King.
this is a
There-
Winterham address,
there-
but I don't know who
I
that
can't remember
is.
exactly what they called it, to protect
I have it on
properties.
the spreadsheet.
It's not an endowment, it's not a trust.
It's money though?
You can get
Is there an
tax,
internet I
Oh.
can get on?
you can
Uh-huh.
donate,
Like an
and you
internet I
can set
can
this
access?
property into like a foundation or something, I don't remember the name
Uh-huh.
of it.
Guest pass?
But you can write off the cost of the
TOA
appraised
guess?
value, over a period of
Okay.
time.
I
Now, I
think
don't
that's in here somewhere?
I-
That's good to know.
It's
I'd
in one
like
of
to know
these,
that.
it's one of these, briefs in here
Okay.
something.
Okay. That's good, I'd love to know that.
Okay, so.
Okay, so, should we talk about, while we're doing the list, should we talk about, the specific goals we're gonna have for these objectives? I jotted down a few,
It's objectives for the goal.
oh, I do that every time. Specific objectives for the goals.
The cart before the horse.
So, so we have as a goal, improve awareness of and appreciation of the district among property owners, and I had as a clear goal for that would be to to have our public event.
Yeah.
So that would be one. Did anyone have any others to add to that?
Well, I think we've been talking about, preparing a booklet, a pamphlet, like
Okay.
Janice has already
Right.
started, but something that could be really given to, I think a public event, but then even subsequent,
Pages, Brian.
workshops is what Mariana suggested too. I think that would be very good.
And Betsy's,
Back of Betsy.
So it's on the very back page of Betsy's summary. We have
Yeah,
the,
got it.
the goals, and now we're talking about objectives under each goal. So under the first goal, we have that we're gonna hold a public event, and then we're going to prepare a pamphlet for dissemination, all right?
Mm-hmm.
Were there any, others?
If you wanted, I mean, the idea about the training that I had said, where
Yeah,
we
the
just,
workshop.
I like
where we
that.
just schedule one once a month, and they're just like basically videos.
Yeah,
that we
for
put on.
interested people like
Yeah,
him, he would like
exactly.
that, yeah.
If you all are interested in that.
I think
we
so.
could
I
get
think
that
that's a
going.
real good idea.
Oh, training for the public?
Yeah, public.
Okay.
For both, yeah, whoever could attend.
Okay.
Training, I guess I would
Right.
just say.
Did anyone have any others? Well, those are three good.
Those are
Those
three
are
good
good.
ones, I
Yeah.
think.
So then the next goal is improve the value of the historic district to those who live in and visit the historic district through mitigation of traffic, speed, and noise. I mean, I think the only thing we can do on that is recommend specific, things to town council, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, I wondered if, I mean, you all can comment on this. As I said, this is a draft, so I don't have any
I
problem.
have noticed the alley traffic is terrible, just in the past couple of
Totally
weeks. We've
is.
been raking leaves and stuff. It's,
It totally is. I don't know why somebody doesn't get hit on
Yeah.
Plum Alley. But so that traffic speed is not only limited to, Main and Valley, but Plum
mhm.
too. I guess Park Street also would be under that also. But I didn't know, what I'm saying a second ago is I did not know if that was too specific to put into a goal, the part about through the mitigation of traffic, speed, and noise, that maybe that was more of a
Yeah, I don't know. what-
objective.
And didn't they say since that's a state highway that, or what is Route 11? It's a
US Highway.
highway, yeah. So we don't have any control over that.
Oh, well, but we have control over enforcing the speed limit.
We don't.
We, the
The
town.
town
The
does.
town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Does it need to be one of our goals for the historic?
Oh, I think
I
so.
think so.
Well, yeah,
Okay.
this is the town's plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you're right, I mean, the specific, objective that we're gonna have to do in all cases is to recommend activity by someone else.
Right.
Oh, right.
Yeah, okay.
That's
Just
gonna
clear
have to
that
be,
up.
Right.
that's the action item that we're going to do.
Yeah. I was just wondering if the goal should be more general, improve the value of the historic district to those who live in it and visit it, period. And then one of the objectives is the mitigation. Do you all
Mhm.
think that?
Yeah, I
You
do.
That could be,
Okay.
okay.
Okay. Then therefore, we just would take that and put that down
So
there as
within
As
this
an
district
objective.
as an
and then
objective.
Yes.
one, okay. And then,
We can think of other things that could be
Right.
another objective that makes it a
Lighting.
pleasant place to live and visit.
Lighting,
Lighting, yeah. Lighting would be a good one.
landscaping.
I was gonna say, we were gonna get a code compliance, I mean, we are in the process of getting a code compliance officer, so it seemed like your discussion last time was also about the enforcement
Mhm.
aspect of the regulations, which would include the landscaping, lighting, and all of that, so enforcement of the current,
Okay,
district regulations.
right.
people in historic costumes doing reenactments. Serving. I'm being halfway facetious.
We have a lot of that, going on.
We already have a lot of
there.
that voluntarily.
A lot of tours of people taking people around.
Ghost tours and.
Everything,
Yes.
yeah. They stand in front of your house,
Oh,
don't
yeah.
they? Mine
Mm.
too.
There's
Not in
at
front
least
of
2 different
mine. They
outfits
sit
for
on my
every-
wall.
You know, one thing, following up on the enforcement issue, there've been a lot of times over the years, in my experience on this board, and I'm sure the rest of you, where something's agreed on and then it just gets built. And nothing ever happens.
Say that again?
Somebody ignores something that they've agreed to do
Oh.
and builds it,
Oh,
and
this
then there
board.
it stays. That has happened.
Well,
Yeah.
that's an enforcement thing.
I know,
Yeah.
I'm saying, that's
Right.
a
And-
pretty
and that's where
important
a
thing.
compliance officer
Yeah.
will help, you know,
Right.
like with, an example that things weren't happening that they were supposed to. This was right when I started back on this board, the summer building, you know, they had agreed to certain aspects of that and didn't follow up with it,
Right.
or changed it.
Changed it.
But people in the community brought it to our attention, and then we took it to, I guess Jason Boswell at the time. So in that situation, if we had a compliance officer, that would be brought to him. But who is the, does this board monitor, you know, everything that's going on in the
No,
historic district?
I guess I'm thinking that the compliance officer needs to be sort of proactive to a certain extent and not wait for us to notice something.
Yeah, I believe that's true. I mean, you could comment on that, Maya, that.
Yeah, it's a bit more complaint driven in general, but if there was something that this board could be the complainants essentially. And then the ultimate enforcement, if something gets built, I mean, that would obviously then kick into an actual legal situation and that would most likely from this board be a recommendation up through the compliance officer to the town council and ultimately to the legal team to decide if they wanted to pursue action, if the town wanted to pursue action against someone. So it gets a little complex, certain things we can do, and then certain things it's gonna take.
So what the
further
code provides is
discussion.
that the compliance officer or whoever the appropriate official of the town issues a stop work order.
Right.
And then, that happens when either they realize on their own that it's not consistent with the certificate of appropriateness, or we bring it to their attention. And then, going forward, what happens will depend on the circumstances. If they're, you know, usually what happens is they stop work, and they come back in, and we agree on a plan and fix it. Or if they don't do that, then, you know, the town has the ability to impose a fine per day that, you know, that the construction remains in effect that is inconsistent with the certificate of appropriateness. Now, whether the town does that or not, that's not our decision. Our decision really is just making the town compliance officer aware that it's not conforming with our certificate of appropriateness, and then they issue the stop work order, and then we're pretty
Right.
much out of it
Yes.
until
I have a
it's
question.
remedied.
This is a process question. So to kick that whole thing in action, when we have approved a certificate, when we've issued a certificate of appropriateness, then where does it go? Does it then go to the compliance officer?
So let's just take Vicki Wampler's because
Yeah.
that's the one we've been
Yeah,
dealing with
right.
most recently.
Right.
So, her certificate, or maybe even let's just talk about the one on Valley where you did not approve the railing piece of that.
Yes.
So
It's being painted right now.
He came, he submitted his information for a building permit, so for the pieces that he needed to do. And in our process that we
Mhm.
have, I uploaded the approval of what was approved, and then what I left unapproved was the connection of the railing to the column. So it's all in there, and so right now, let's say he went out and did it, and built a railing and connected it to the column. That's an exact situation where, I mean, we do have code compliance through the police department, it's
Right.
just not in our side of things right now. We could ask for a stop work order in that situation. And so, then he would either stop working or continue forward, and then at that point, like,
That
it would,
fine would-
yeah.
What about stuff that we approve but never gets done and their 1 year runs out?
Then they would need to come back here.
That just runs out and that
It
come
just
back.
runs
Yeah.
out.
Talking about that example, though, I guess it would be, since we're the only people that are aware of what that
Mm.
we're waiting on with junction comes in, so then our I guess it's our responsibility to monitor that. And if he does something, then we have to,
Yes
Well,
and no.
That's
It would
my
be-
question,
it's-
is that, is who
It's
does
kind of in our,
monitor that?
it's in our purview, because we're the ones that are giving the building permit. And so when he came in and asked for his building permit, I was very specific that what hasn't been approved is the railing and the connection to the
And wasn't it
concrete.
agreed that he would come back with a detail about the railing?
Yes, and he
Yes.
has been emailed and called, and he said he wasn't ready this month,
Right.
and so it's kind of really like it becomes the
Yeah.
Community Development Department's, requirement to follow up on things, I guess is what I
Right,
will say.
and I'm
Like, we
glad to
monitor
hear
it.
that.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like it's beyond what we have a capacity to do well, is that piece of it.
And
that-
Vicky's, for example, Vicky Wampler's, hers came in for a building permit, you know, you were specific about the driveway,
Mhm.
the removal of the other building, so all of that goes in your motion,
Yeah.
then gets put into our system, and so she had to go through the driveway situation, she's had to get the disturbance permit, and
Yeah.
she's now, and then, you know, when she brought the plans in, when her contractor brought the plans in, I pulled up what was in the drawings that she'd submitted, the
Right.
motion that you had made,
Yeah.
and compared the two to make sure that
Right.
it was
So
the same.
it's in your department.
It is.
It's really something that I don't believe we would do. We would do it as a catch as catch can and not do it well.
Right, so it would be more of other things, so if you, for example, said, I'm just gonna use this as an example, we think that people many buildings have.
Who is that coming in?
Their shutters are falling off or something, we'd like you to send a letter out.
Uh-huh.
Then similar to what we're doing with this list of, people that you're talking to, we'd say, okay, we'll make a list and send a letter out. So the compliance side of it can go a number of different paths.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That makes me feel better.
Welcome.
So are we ready to move on to the third goal?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
I gotta go, I just wanted to say hi.
Hey. Hello.
That was a short visit.
Well, I didn't realize what point of the meeting you were at, so.
We're about, well, we've been here for a while.
Improve the effectiveness of the historic preservation review process through ongoing education of its review board and through regular review and updates of its preservation ordinance. And so, one objective would be update the ordinance. We talked about
there's a need to do that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And another, I guess that would be a good place to put training for us, specific training
Yes.
for us.
Right.
So when she does her monthly or whatever, how many training sessions?
Yes.
And I think an objective would be to, every once in a while attend a conference.
Well, I think we're supposed to, I mean.
We are.
It's in our job description.
Should we put it attend at least one conference a year?
I think that's what it says.
Well, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's
Maybe-
ambitious.
Maybe we should set it to certain amount of hours of education instead of going, because
Right.
it can be expensive going to a conference. We could get like,
We could just put develop a schedule of board training.
Mm-hmm.
And not specify whether it's in-house or attendance at a conference. I mean, we did a little of that tonight.
Yeah, we should
Mhm.
count that, 30 minutes.
So that's this year taken care of.
just in time. It's our last meeting of the year.
Okay, are there other objectives for that? Update the ordinance and
Yeah.
develop a schedule of, board training?
I think that's it.
Okay. And then the last one is improve an understanding of and efficiency in administering the historic district by expanding it to match the footprint of the federal state footprint. And so that in itself there is, an objective is amend the ordinance to match the state federal footprint.
Well, we could be specific, divide it up into the different sections that we've talked about, in case we don't wanna do them all, the
Right, 'cause
the
that's a
300
big one.
The 300 block of East Main being the primary.
Have we
Right.
decided we're gonna try to do it all at once or just sections?
I thought we decided we were gonna try to do one
East.
section that might be easier to accomplish for public relations purposes after we'd have our big kickoff meeting.
I think
I
I
thought,
remember.
I thought.
And
we-
after we've done some talking to them. You thought what?
Well, I was thinking that we were gonna, our goal was going to, or our objective was going to be to match the footprint to the state federal, but that we were going to do this educational program and meet with the people and then decide if that was too ambitious.
Okay, I think so. I mean, we could make these objectives be, have some dates on them, sort of, you know, or else do them as phase one, phase two. And, I mean, they can be amended, but I feel like we'll put ourselves in a box if we if we do the whole thing, we require ourselves to put the whole thing at one time.
Right.
Just in case we meet some resistance.
Right. Well, that's a good idea. We can put the different areas here.
Yeah.
And then start off trying to get with the overall goal of having the footprint match, but then leave some wiggle room if we find out that's gonna be problematic.
Yeah. What are the different, how could we divide those different districts up?
I would map East Main,
Yeah,
obviously.
right.
Win-Keene,
And,
and then
uh-huh,
Oak Hill, I think. are the-
okay, well, is that the way it
three
is?
primary
Okay.
areas.
Are you counting Mason Place in Oak Hill?
And then there's,
Yes.
and then down there across from, on Pecan Street, there's a section.
Oh,
Yes.
on Railroad Street?
Well,
Or across from 128 Pecan, across from there, there's a
Yeah.
section.
where the Hiram Dewey house was?
I think we should do that with East Main, cause that should be relatively, the only property there that's not in it though is what the church owns, isn't it? And the bike shop. Do you remember Janet Woolwine's place, Peyton, is in the historic district?
No,
Oh, it's
It's
not,
not.
no.
no. None of Park Street is,
Well, the upper half is,
upper half.
where,
Where
I mean, the
Rick Humphreys-
westerns.
Oh, right, but the block where the Purple House is that she did is
Correct.
not.
Maybe that should be another phase then, 4 different phases.
You know, I think that,
'Cause there'll be-
I think that area of Park Street is really so compromised with so much, synthetic
Yeah.
siding that it's going to be difficult.
I don't know that we need 4, just because I think we could run it down to 3, just because several of these are commercial properties, I think, from this list, so.
The park, the area Byram's referring
No, I'm
to?
talking about after we do East Main, I
next
think
door
we could
neighbors.
maybe build in Oak Hill and Mason in with the East Main, just to
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of, I mean, this isn't a very long list.
No.
So
Is
I don't know
Mason
if we.
Place, is Mason Place also on it?
There's 3
On the
Mason
state
Place
footprint?
there's 3 Mason Place, or 2 Mason Place addresses on this sign-up sheet.
Okay.
So there's just Whitley and Cam.
But are they owners or is it there?
It's
Is
those-
it-
that's-
is
Whitney
their
Smith
properties?
and,
Those are-
and Campbell.
Okay, that's what I know. I was just asking if they were on that owners list.
I
or-
thought
Yeah, they are.
I thought you were
Whitley-
asking if they are owners.
Oh,
Yeah, but Whitley's on here, and those are the only 2. So I think,
Okay.
you know, there's no reason to make that and the few on Oak Hill a whole separate thing when I
oh,
think,
right.
I
agree.
just think that the 4 is a lot when
I
you have a
agree.
short list.
Was the cemetery on it or is it already in the district?
It's already in the
It's
district.
already in.
So it just hopped over so it just stopped at the cemetery instead of going on up to the museum property? Okay.
My gut feeling is if we get pushback, it's gonna be on Oak Hill, would be my gut feeling.
Who controls the Major Craig estate?
Yeah,
Does anybody know?
yeah, that's how we don't know on here who that is, because
I mean,
whoever owns that estate.
she had nieces or somebody, didn't she, relatives?
Is her house the house on Oak Hill that is
Well,
for
those are
sale or
all
just
paid.
sold?
I don't know, it's the one with the ramp
267.
and the big mercury vapor light on the front porch.
And
Oh.
we could just bring maps that are zoomed in more
Yeah.
with the address on
Yeah.
the parcel, if that would be helpful.
I've got that map somewhere, I'm sure.
I mean, because we have 1, 2, 3, we have 4 houses on Oak Hill. No, here's some more. 5, 6. Oak Hill could almost be its own section. Here's 2 more. Oak Hill has a lot of houses on it if you want to just make them their own section. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 houses on Oak Hill.
Why
About
are we
25.
considering Oak Hill and not Stonewall Heights? I can't remember. Was that discussed?
Well, I wrote about Stonewall Heights. Stonewall Heights
wasn't in
was,
the- it wasn't in
Stonewall
the
Heights
state
was
plan.
deemed very, very, ready.
I know.
So here, it's
That could
not
be
in the-
combined with Oak Hill.
So the orange here, that's the one, this shows you what's.
Oh, yeah, this is the one that's easier to read.
We'll pass that back down. See, this
Oak
was,
Hill, there's Oak Hill.
this was my logic.
Oh, and here's a little bit of basin place right there, yeah.
This, I don't think will be very difficult. This should be
Yeah, I don't
easy.
know any of these people, so
I'd
I'm not really
imagine
helpful.
this, I don't know about Mark Simcox on
I
that.
know some that I don't
think
wanna
he'll
go talk
not
to.
want to.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I'm that way too.
This part of Park Street, I don't think will be that difficult. So I was looking at it as, this is 1,
Mm-hmm,
this is 2, and that's 3.
mm-hmm. So you're looking at you'd like to put the 300 block of East Main Street and the, museum property
At 1 whack.
at one? Mm-hmm.
And Mason Place, I think that'll be, should ask Cam while he's here if he would be opposed.
I'm in the office with him every day, yeah.
I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be, but I think there's a couple of properties here that'll be difficult, and I think definitely with these, cause a lot of these are owned by KVAC.
Yeah, I think Oak Hill's gonna be a problem too.
So the 300 block of West Main and Wheaton King we put together?
The 300 block of East Main
I'm sorry,
is
block.
1, 2, 3 4 houses, 4, and here's another one.
This is what
No, 4, it's only 4 places. 1,
Do
no,
we know if,
3, 4, 5, 6, it's 6.
This
Mm.
is 1,
What's this?
Mason Place.
That's Mason Place?
Where's Cornelius? Oh, see, now this is out at the lake, but this must be somebody
Oh,
that
that's
owns.
just, there's just 2 houses.
Like, this
Miss
is-
Lily's and,
Cornelius Drive is,
right.
yeah, I know where that is.
But this is,
I'm
must be
assuming-
one of the Oak Hill houses, right? Because it's with
Alright.
the Oak Hill
So-
properties.
That would be
So
one.
that'd
If
be
that's the way
this
this was
one.
put together, I
Yes,
don't
that's
know.
where this
That's,
is.
I don't know, that's Mark
Well, we should
Simcox.
include that if we're at the same, if we're gonna do them all, I mean, should we?
Well, on the way to the lake.
Yeah, I think Mark will be negative about it, but anyway,
This is in
doesn't matter.
Wareham, this address.
And then I would call this 2
Find out who owns that.
Park
Hmm.
Street area,
I don't
Maybe
know.
that was Letitia.
Alright.
and then 3 would be Oak Hill.
Okay.
Does anyone know if Margie's, Muncie's little B&B or Airbnb is part of their Main Street property or a separate property?
You mean the one behind them?
Mhm.
Cottage.
I don't know.
It's part of the, it's in the state, right there it is.
I
So
mean,
it's-
does it look like it's part of the same?
Yeah, it's in the state and federal, but not ours. There's the house, there's the little.
Well, I'm just going by the property line, so it's probably part of their, part of deeded the same,
Yes, it looks like.
which is the way my office is. It's part of my
How
house.
many houses are you counting on Oak Hill?
Well, it's hard to tell by this, but it looks like, just structures, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12,
It's such a
13,
pretty street, it
14,
would be nice to
15,
have it protected.
16.
See, we don't have that,
17.
we don't have that many addresses for Oak Hill, but like this one says Cornelius Drive, which could be in Oak Hill, this is Azure Lane, that could be in Oak Hill, I don't know.
All these properties here are owned by Food City.
Oh, they're
Yeah,
all,
but there's no structures on those, so I
there's
wasn't
no
even counting
structures,
those.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
We're talking about these addresses, except for this weird one here, which is out at the lake, so I don't know these people.
And if you guys, if we end up with these as the 3 sort of areas, we could definitely,
Zero
even
in.
part of the plan could be zooming into those areas, putting addresses on the parcels.
And seeing who, if it's, it
Okay.
could be
Yeah.
one person owns 5 or 6
Exactly,
of them.
yeah.
Mhm.
And I did that, I will tell you that I didn't, I took off KVAT, cause that's a large, I mean,
Yeah.
somebody
Right.
could talk to them who wants to talk to them, but, and then any of them that were duplicates, I also removed because there was no, if
Right.
somebody owns more than one parcel, so that's
Those-
why your list is.
Those are all the ones that the hospital bought up,
Yeah.
and I guess KVAT bought
I don't know who would
all
handle
of
that.
them
Okay,
with.
that Fugit, Mr. Fugit, maybe?
I don't know.
building
They
they
have a
tore
real
down.
estate person, and it's not Charlie Fuga.
That's,
Okay, so
Would you all like for me to try to flesh out these objectives for us a little bit?
I'd love
Okay.
it.
All right.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
I'll do that.
And I think maybe reorder them, because I feel like the last one is our most important one. So maybe that should be, I mean, I like it,
that seems to be the one we're most focused on.
yeah.
Okay.
And I think,
I think the education, and I agree with that, but I think before we go talk to anybody, we need to educate ourselves on the facts that we are going to, make the historic district look glamorous. You know, so that way we're all on the same page, we
Mhm.
all are educated on, like the tax credits, you know, that stuff I
Yeah.
just gave out, you know, all the pros. That way when we go, we're all talking about the same thing and not different things.
well, so we should probably, as a, objective under the first goal is develop an outline of the points that we want to discuss.
Discuss.
with
Yeah, I mean, this is a lot here. If we could maybe,
Oh.
everybody look at condensing this into
Oh.
a one-page sheet that we could have with us when we go to see someone, you know, all the stuff that Mike gave us, and that's a lot of.
That's just tax credit though, isn't it?
Yeah, read through it,
And
it's very brief. And I
Okay.
can tell you what it is right now.
Well, don't the state and federal tax credits just come into play if you're doing a fairly significant restoration?
It's, I don't remember the exact amount,
Yeah, it is.
But that's gonna be a question that we're going to
But what I'm
be,
saying is that we're not gonna spend a lot of time talking to people trying to get them to be in the historic district because they're gonna get a federal state tax credit, because you have to
Right.
do a major restoration in order to get that. So that would be a very small part of what we
Correct.
talk to people about.
That's
Okay.
correct. That's correct. It's mainly the town's tax credit.
yeah, well, I think that before we go and speak to anyone, we need to have a short training session that we're all gonna say the same kind of thing,
Right.
that's the point I was
Yeah.
trying to get at.
because I wouldn't even know where to start.
So that should be one of our objectives under the first goal. We need maybe a summary
Yeah,
of
in a
the
cohesive plan.
benefits of being in the historic district.
Could we require Betsy to go on all the visits?
Why me?
Is there a
Because you-
motion? Is there a motion?
Yeah.
Yes,
Because
it's
why?
unanimous,
Because
Because
why?
because you
Because
know
you
it, you
vote
know
for
it like in your sleep.
Oh,
I'll stand behind you.
We'll just nod our heads.
for heaven's sake.
Can,
So part of our objective under the first goal would be to actually have, I don't want to call them talking points, but a summary of the points we'd like to make.
the elevator speech, except
Well, you know, I
expanded.
think that's the purpose of this pamphlet.
Yeah.
The pamphlet should be clear, should be just a clear, easy to read. These are the benefits of
Right.
being in the historic district, and one of them would definitely be the tax credit.
Right, but but there's many more, so,
Right.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, right.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I think that is it.
yeah.
I mean, we can certainly, at one of our, planning meetings right now, get ourselves educated on that, on what it is.
Right.
And I think you've just done a great service here, because that's one of the confusing things, is the benefits of the tax
Right.
credits versus local, state, and federal.
So maybe we can make that something we need to do at our next planning session, is to talk about,
Yeah.
Yeah, where do we,
Agree
And
on-
to
where do we
educate
start?
ourselves on the tax credits.
well, not just the tax credit, but on what we want to present to people when we meet with them,
Right.
as to why they should be in favor of being in the
Yeah.
historic district.
Which
Yeah.
should go along with our first public meeting, should cover the same
Oh,
information.
it sure should.
Yeah,
And we're talking about that being in the spring. I think we mentioned April or May, didn't we?
Are you
Public meeting.
Yeah.
gonna wanna go out prior to that to chat with people, or?
I
Are
don't
you-
know, that's my question. Do we want to have a meeting that everyone's invited to and then hit up the ones that didn't show up? Or do we want to go door to door before we even?
Well, here's what I think. I've thought about that, because I think timing is important, and you don't have to agree with me at all. But I think, let's say we've set May the 5th as our public meeting, and we've spent some time getting our objectives together and getting ourselves educated on what is this. We may have our pamphlet ready, we should have our pamphlet ready. We should have our pamphlet ready, and everything is sort of in place. And like maybe a month before that, we start going out to talk to people. and we tell them about this public meeting and ask them to please put it on their calendars to come.
But what if they say, well, they did a really good job of explaining those to me, I don't think I need to go back to a public meeting.
Well, I think to ask them this early on would,
Well, even if you do it, whenever you do it, if it's before the public meeting, you may lose some people.
Well, I thought part of meeting with them was to personally ask them if they'll come to the meeting.
that's what I thought so too.
So they need to be close together.
To get a commitment from them.
That's what I thought was one of the purposes of that, was to make
Give 'em a
sure we
teaser.
persuade them to come. Yeah, give them a teaser.
You're not
Right.
getting rid of us till you come to our meeting.
Right.
I'll tell you about the tax credits, but you gotta come to.
I mean, because I feel like if you go to someone's house and knock on their door and say, I just wanted to personally invite you to a meeting, here's
Mhm.
what's gonna be covered at it, then they come.
Right.
If you can't make it, please take time to read our pamphlet and contact one of these people who listed
Yeah.
with any further questions. This is
Yeah.
gonna become, I mean, that kind of a
I
thing.
think so too. I
Don't
think-
5 minutes,
I
right?
think we've got a lot of work to do before we get
I do
to
too.
there.
Yeah, before
to
we
that
sign
point.
up
We
for
need to
stuff,
make
yeah.
Appointments, though, you don't wanna just go knock on
No, I
somebody's
think we-
door.
Well, whatever we
No,
do,
No, we
right?
would make appointments.
Yeah, but I'm just saying,
We
like,
would call them up. I mean, I put, the Belchers on there that I would talk to. I mean, I would tell them, I would ask them if I could come and talk to them about this.
yeah, I didn't sign up for anybody yet because I didn't know any of these people, really. I don't know why I don't know anybody. But I think that you should have a personal
Okay,
connection.
thank you.
For the
There
moment.
is one that lives in my neighborhood, but I don't know what she owns. I need to find out.
Well, the
I
ones
agree.
ones
It's-
none of
it's
us
better if
really
you know somebody.
Yeah.
We'll just have to sign up.
We
for.
will.
So we need to talk about when we're going to have our presentation and who we're gonna have as a speaker.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Now, that speaker,
let's, go ahead, I just have a suggestion.
go ahead.
Well, not a suggestion necessarily, but I was gonna ask, Betsy, do you know, did you ever meet Bill Kennedy? William Kennedy from Jonesboro,
No.
doctor? He's an orthopedist, I think. He kind of, he's the preservation czar, I think somebody called him,
Of
in
Jonesboro,
Jonesboro, and was sort of in on it from the beginning, apparently. He owns that, there's a hotel there, an old,
Mm-hmm.
I forget what it's called. But, because I've, either once or twice, he came to some sort of design forums that I organized in Bristol, I believe in Bristol, back in the
Mm-hmm.
20 years ago or something.
And he was good?
He's good, he's old, but that doesn't make him a bad speaker. Yeah, because I was trying to, I thought, well, maybe he's not even still living, but I did find a Facebook page. But he graduated from medical school in 65, so he's certainly in his 80s.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, he was good, and that might be a good somebody to have. And sort of further to that, would it be good maybe to have a panel, or have more than one person?
Yeah, and Betsy and I both, we've been in contact together with Audrey,
Aubrey.
From the DHR.
I
and then
haven't been in
also-
contact with
okay,
her.
and
I've just
then
been in
also
contact with Mike.
Mike
Like
Pulis.
yours?
And they both said that they would be more than happy to participate if we were making it a panel or a day or a longer session to tell us about programs,
Yeah.
the state DHR,
Right.
that side of it.
I think a
Because-
panel's
so-
always, I mean, it's good, it's variety.
Well,
It
and-
is. I sort of think that we need to have a key speaker, a keynote, and that could be that expensive person that both of them keep
Yeah.
recommending that's from Washington. He cost, what did he say, $2,500?
Plus expenses.
Plus expenses, but it might be that our CLG money will pay for
Okay.
that. So he would be the person that is like the national name for historic preservation. But I also think that what you were just talking about with Mr. Kennedy,
Doctor?
Dr. Kennedy, that there are people, like for instance, I haven't checked this out lately, but the Historic Lexington Foundation, Lexington, Virginia is a very successful historic town. At least it used to be. I don't know, I mean, and I've been trying to get to the phone to call Mike Pulis and ask him that. So is Georgetown, Alexandria is. Charleston, of course, is still the queen, that we had a speaker from one of those places that just talks about from I live here point of view, and why I think that historic preservation is one of the main reasons why our community is so successful. You know, the person from Washington is gonna tell you all the correct things, of course, but he's not talking from the ground floor, from the ground level, like a person who's living there. I mean, I know I've said this 1,000 times, but Joe Riley was just so effective here, because he lives and breathes Charleston, he lives there, and everybody looks upon Charleston as the success.
Should we have, would Joe Riley be available to come back again?
I don't even know if he's alive.
I kind of think he isn't.
Yeah, so it sounds like, it
Not
does
positive,
sound
but-
like you would want a key speaker, and I can send everyone a link of the person that Aubrey and Mike Pulis have suggested, so that you can see if you think
Yeah.
he's worth the $2,500.
He's supposed to be very good, yeah, they do.
Yeah,
They say
and
he's very
so,
good.
yeah, and I mean, it's his entire company, so I'll send you a link of some of his presentations, like
Is
I
he-
looked at some.
Oh, you
Sorry.
did?
Mhm.
Oh, I
So if we're
haven't.
gonna spend that type of money, should we invite other communities, like Bristol and Marion, or wherever, to participate in this?
But what's our goal? Is our goal to
If we're gonna pay
educate
20
Abingdon or to educate Southwest
Well,
Virginia?
Our goal
But I
is,
mean, we're gonna have to, we're probably gonna have some sort of refreshments for whoever's there. I mean, it's gonna add, if we're,
Location-wise too,
you
where
have
we
to have
can
a location that accommodates everybody.
it'd be disappointing for me for us to spend $2,500 and 10 people show
What
up.
was the suggestion
Oh,
for
we couldn't
location
possibly
last time?
have that.
No,
The train
so that's
station.
why I'm saying we should
Oh, right.
expand it out,
Where
that
there's-
part
where
of it.
there-
Well,
Other than
if we
auditorium.
do a good job of marketing it, I think
That's where there
I
was
don't
a-
think that'll be the case. I mean, this
I
room
haven't
was
been in there
packed
since
when
it
we
was
had
the-
Joe Riley
It
here.
was a ski
They were
shop or
standing up
something,
in the
or
back.
outfitters or something, they moved
But
out.
our overall, the goal we're trying to achieve is to expand the historic district to match the footprint of the state and the federal. That's the whole reason we're doing all this,
Yeah.
right? Am I right?
It's one of the main reasons.
One of the main reasons.
Yeah.
So, I feel like that needs to be our focus, and I think we talked about not just inviting those people, obviously, but everybody in the town that wants to come, but that would be our focus. So I would think if we have a good speaker and we promote it well, it would have a good turnout with that, but, I don't know.
You mean about asking other communities? I don't think we even need to decide that yet. I think we're far enough out.
It's
Yeah.
gonna be open to the public.
But-
Yeah.
Getting back to the expensive guy, you say he's in DC or in Northern
I
Virginia?
think he's in Washington.
Is he a Virginia? I'm just thinking if he also has a connection to, say, Alexandria, having somebody of import
Deal
who's
with town.
from Virginia, because we have certain,
I'll send you the link and the link to his company. It was just suggested to us, so we kind of, followed down the path and got an email. I just, said,
just-
Yeah, we should
How much is
definitely-
it?
We should check that out and
Yeah.
look at him and see what we think.
just because, well, we have that sort of hereditary connection with Alexandria, because we were one of the first. Was it Alexandria and Abingdon and Lexington maybe were the first historic districts created in
Is that
Virginia?
right?
I don't know.
Ahead of Williamsburg?
Well, that's not a historic district.
It
It's a
didn't start that
museum.
way? Oh, okay, I was thinking
Well, I
back in
think
the
that's
day.
kind of a nice, idea, and I also think that we need to drive that home when
Yeah.
we're talking about this, that we are one of the first,
Mhm.
and that's something to be really proud of.
And honestly, the only reason that we are here is because we started so long ago. Because it's hard as heck to get a historic district started now. And I've been involved in multiple discussions in Bristol over the years when that's
Mhm.
come up, and there's just no appetite for it.
Mhm.
It's very hard to do.
What's the opposition that you see with these, like Bristol and you said Baltimore? What's the opposition now that people don't want to create a historic district or be in a historic district?
Probably the same things you'll encounter here, is
Yeah.
that they think it's another layer of bureaucracy, of burden, of
Telling me what to do. with
Big
my
Brother
property.
telling me what to do. It's, that's sort of in the air now.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean we shouldn't try.
Well, I think that's one of my reasons for thinking that one of the speakers has to be somebody who lives in a town that's very successful because of its historic
Right.
district.
Well, let's set our objectives for our next meeting since it's coming up on 7.
Yes, we're all hungry.
Can I ask a question first,
No.
because I keep forgetting it? Is there any reason why was there a technical reason not to have the screens, to have this material, the drawings and things up there? Because I thought we always had that.
No, we could,
These little Bundy drawings, it's like postage stamp size, and
okay.
I thought it was just sort of matter of course, but maybe not.
I'm not sure. Do we normally put the
When we would-
drawings on the?
Downstairs, we always did that.
No one told you, did they?
No.
She's gotten everything else
Surprise!
right.
We just thought you just would get it all through osmosis.
Yeah.
It would be really helpful though.
Yeah, no, we absolutely can put it up there.
Well, so
Yeah.
next time, our assignment is we all will have read these tax
Yes.
credit things, and we'll try to get ourselves educated on that, take notes and
And
sort
if
of
she
check
sends
that
that
one
link
off.
to that guy, we'll have
Yeah.
chance to kind of
And
check
we'll
him
all
out.
we'll think about successful communities, we can Google successful communities, we can find out all kinds of things like that, and maybe try to set a parameter of a date for that.
I think that'd be good.
And I will work on these objectives and send those.
You did a good
around.
job.
Yes.
It's very helpful.
Well, thank you.
So we can, I think that sounds good. Does that give you enough to work from? Okay, all right.
I know nobody has the answer to this question, but I'm curious. I'm looking at Mark Simcox's piece of property there
Uh-huh.
that's got a barn on it and a small little cottage that he's just remodeled.
Which is that?
Mark Simcox property there off of King Street. I don't know why they encompass that whole,
I don't know where you're pointing to. Where's King Street?
Are you talking about the
Is that
Patterson's
behind-
house?
It's that field below Patterson.
Below Patterson's house?
he
Oh,
lives
below
in
my
Patterson's
house.
house, but it's not even, it's not in the
He's got
state.
a house over there on the corner.
Oh.
That house, it's
Oh.
on down.
Oh,
So that's not in.
Barn?
yeah.
No, it's in the state.
For whatever reason, that's in the Virginia, in the state.
Yeah.
Oh, it is?
He's on the list.
Is his house,
His house is
old?
not?
Well, he's on our talk to list.
Oh, his house is not on it, but his field is.
Oh.
Is that little two-story rental house? Is that
Do we
in-
want to take a motion?
Right
to
down
adjourn?
below?
There is a little,
Just so I can-
structure on
Okay.
King Street,
You
isn't there?
know,
Just so we don't get into too
I
much
lived
chatter.
there years ago.
Let's take a
On the
motion to
live
adjourn.
lines.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
I moved that motion.
Is there a second?
I second.
Roll call.
Mr. Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Owens?
Aye.
Mrs. Hartshorn?
Aye.
Mrs. White?
Aye.
And Mr. Geisler?
Aye. All right, thank you.
Everybody go
That's an
home for dinner?
interesting book.
Yes.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Highly
Thank you.
recommend it. She and her husband at the time
Good, that
wrote
worked out well
one,
with them.
I don't know when,
I think they were
70s,
happy
80s.
with that.
Yes.
And then, and it's small.